U.S. and Russian relations remain far apart, even after Secretary of State Rex Tillerson met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow.
Yeah, the meeting was an effort to salvage ties, but instead laid out the country's differences. KCAL 9 political reporter Bryan joins us now with more on the meeting and President Trump's 180 on NATO.
Yeah, you can't say they didn't try.
Yeah.
They talked for hours and hours. In the end, though, almost nothing changed. It was a long day for Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who spent a total of about 5 hours talking to Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in 2 separate meetings. And at the end of the day, there was no hiding the deep differences between the U.S. and Russia. With Russia and President Putin still snarling about the U.S. strike in Syria and still active in Crimea and Ukraine, President Trump has suddenly had a change of heart about NATO after a meeting with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg.
I said it was obsolete. It's no longer obsolete.
As he indicated, President Trump hasn't always thought highly of NATO, on the campaign trail suggesting on several occasions that it isn't necessary anymore.
Let me tell you, NATO is obsolete. It was 67 years, or it's over 60 years old. It is, many countries, doesn't cover terrorism, okay? It covers the Soviet Union, which is no longer in existence.
The two leaders talked about a variety of topics, including the ongoing civil war in Syria, with a very different tone on NATO. And President Trump, while acknowledging the relationship has hit rock bottom now, still insists it would be great if the U.S. and Russia could work together on global issues.
It would be wonderful, as we were discussing just a little while ago, if NATO and our country could get along with Russia. Right now, we're not getting along with Russia at all.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson spent nearly 2 hours behind closed doors meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I expressed the view that the current state of U.S.-Russia relations is at a low point. There is a low level of trust between our two countries. The world's 2 foremost nuclear powers cannot have this kind of relationship.
The day of diplomacy comes as the U.S. and Russia face sharp differences over the 6-year civil war in Syria. The Trump administration now saying Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad must go. But the Russians say Assad was framed for a recent chemical attack on Syrian civilians, and they're calling the U.S. missile strike in response unlawful.
We have said that there needs to be a very thorough investigation into this incident, which has become the subject of many speculations.
Please raise their hand.
But just minutes after the Russian foreign minister called for that unbiased investigation, Russia vetoed a draft resolution at the United Nations in New York that would have pushed Syria to cooperate with international investigations.
The draft resolution has not been adopted, owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of council.
That was Russia. But in Moscow, Tillerson insisted the facts are clear.
Recent chemical weapons attack carried out in Syria was planned, and it was directed and executed by Syrian regime forces. And we're quite confident of that.
Tillerson says Assad's days in charge of Syria are numbered.
Our view is that the reign of the Assad family is coming to an end.
President Trump said this to the Fox Business Network about Russia's support for Bashar al-Assad.
Putin is backing a person that's truly an evil person. And I think it's very bad for Russia. This is an animal.
I asked Andrew Weiss, who was an advisor to President Clinton on Russian affairs, why Russia and Putin have clung to Assad even in the face of such atrocities.
So they basically saw a vacuum and they rushed to fill it. They knew, I think, at that time that the United States was not looking to get more directly involved in the conflict and that they could operate with impunity. The Russians continue to basically operate with full discretion. They can do what they want. And at this point, there's very little the United States can do to dissuade the Russians from the course they're on.
And if the Syria divisions weren't deep enough, Tillerson also indicated in his meeting with the Russian foreign minister that meddling in the American election could sour the relationship even more.
The question of the interference with the election, that is fairly well established in the United States. It's one that we know is serious enough to attract additional sanctions.
Not a single fact has been confirmed, shows the evidence for these very slanderous attacks.
Well, you get it, and so it went. If the meetings today were meant to expose the deep differences between the U.S. and Russia for all the world to see, then it was a smashing success. But the fact is, with both sides apparently dug into their respective positions, there's probably no way to wiggle out of this one anytime soon, and the U.S. and Russia appear to be headed in very different directions once again. Back to you guys.